We did 6 rides in the 30-minute early entry, and it's also going to get you some incredible photo opportunities. It's almost time for your Disneyland trip. I am so excited for you, maybe a little bit envious. We went to Disneyland twice last year, and before we took our kids, who were at the time about 15 months and 5 years old, almost 5 years old, I did so much research. I read the guidebooks, I watched a ton of different YouTube videos, I was watching Instagram Reels and TikToks, gathering all of the tips possible. We only had 2 days in the parks. If you're super new to Disneyland, there's Disneyland Park and then there's Disney California Adventure Park, DCA. So there's the 2 parks right across from each other. There are 3 hotels on property: the Disneyland Hotel, the Grand Californian Hotel, and Pixar Place. If I could combine all the guidebooks and articles and blogs and vlogs and videos and TikToks that I watched, these are the top 10 most helpful tips that are going to make your next Disneyland trip magical, incredible. I believe number 7 is probably the most important, but let me know what you think. Number 1, plan ahead with the Disneyland app. Download that app right now as you're watching this video maybe, or at least right after you watch this video, and get familiar. The Disneyland app is going to be your best friend when you're at Disneyland and at DCA. You're going to be able to order food online with the mobile order. You're going to be able to check wait times. You're going to be able to buy the Lightning Lane multi-pass if you so choose. You're going to be able to download all the photos that you take on the rides. When you see the Disney photo pass people with their blue vests, everything is going to be on the Disneyland app, and you will have access to internet to be able to use the app all throughout the parks. Also, just get to know the app by looking around, perusing around, check out the map, look at the wait times. I'll just randomly open the app sometimes and see that Guardians of the Galaxy has like a 20-minute wait, and I really wish that I was in the park at that moment. So plan ahead with the Disneyland app. Check it out, look around. Once you're actually there, you're gonna be so grateful that you did this. Number 2, stay close to the park. If you are able, if you can make it happen, stay in the 1 of 3 on-property hotels. Not only is this going to be so amazing because you don't even need to rent a car, you can just walk to the parks. You don't have to take a tram, a bus, nothing. You saunter over and start your day at Disneyland or DCA. And a huge bonus is that you will get early entry into the parks. Please note that the early entry is now alternating. When we first went last year, every single day was early entry at both parks. But our second trip last year, it alternated between early entry at Disneyland and early entry at DCA. So make sure when you're booking your reservations, your hotel reservations, and your park reservations, because now you actually have to book. You don't just like buy a ticket to Disneyland and show up to whatever park you want. You have to make a reservation at each specific park. Make sure you book, say, Disneyland reservation starting the day there, for that being the day of early entry if you stay in the 1 of 3 on-property hotels. There are many good neighbor hotels or neighbor hotels or whatever they call them. I will say I cannot speak to experience at the good neighbor hotels except the Westin Anaheim. We did stay at the Westin Anaheim our very first night on our first trip last year. We flew into LAX, we stayed at the Westin Anaheim. It was absolutely beautiful. You could see DCA from the hotel, so it's definitely very close. Our first trip last year, we stayed at the Disneyland Hotel. We actually stayed in the new part, and we loved our room. It was so magical. It had the bed that came down from the wall. It was an amazing experience. Our second trip last year, we stayed at the Disneyland Hotel in one of the older towers. Our room was also incredible. And then we also stayed at the Grand Californian Hotel because we went to Oogie Boogie Bash. So that was like extra amazing because Grand Californian Hotel has direct park entry to DCA. So we got to go and leave right from the park to and from Oogie Boogie Bash. It was the best. And yes, these hotels are super expensive. It is going to alarm you if you have not checked yet how much these hotels cost. But we did some comparisons with renting a car, having to pay for parking, the time as well. I know someone who recently went and they stayed at a neighboring hotel, and then they took a shuttle, but they got to the park so late that they missed the entry time that they wanted. So really consider all of these things when you're looking at where you're going to stay. This will be probably the most expensive part of your trip, so it's something to really consider. Weigh out all the pros and cons, really do like a cost list and all the things. The ultimate part of this tip is to stay as close as possible, and also make sure you look. If a hotel says like 2-minute walk to park entrance, make sure you look, because some of them I've seen, it'll say park entrance, but it's really just like a sign for the park, and it's still a 15-minute walk to security, and then from security you walk to the ticket gates, and then from the ticket gates you walk into the parks. So there's just so many different things to consider. Also consider the age of the people that you're with. If you have young kids with you, at the end of the day you are going to absolutely love to just walk back to your hotel if you're super close. I will say another bonus of staying on property, I really love staying on property clearly, is that we actually broke up our day by being able to go back to the hotel for my son's nap, which was amazing. We got to go to the pool, so we went, had like a really fun morning at the park, went back to the hotel to have a break, to regroup, recharge, and then went back to the parks. And I will say this was just so worth it. Our first trip was so short, only 2 days, so we really made the most of every second. Okay, next tip, look and consider and prioritize the height requirements. One of the most amazing things about Disneyland, I can't speak to Disney World yet because I haven't taken my kids to Disney World yet, but I know this does apply to some of the rides there. There are so many rides with no height requirement. I talked to so many people who were like, how did you take your 15-month-old son to Disneyland? Like, he couldn't do anything. I was like, he went on 8 or 9 rides because I had him in the baby carrier. I can show the footage. He was having the time of his life. And then when we went the second time last year, he was almost 2. He had even more fun. I feel like there's so many people who are, oh, don't take them, they're not gonna remember. I'm gonna remember, okay? It is their childhood and it's also my motherhood. Even if they don't remember, you will remember. And fun fact, kids under 3 are free, so you know, you may as well take them along. But really look at the height requirements and try to get a good idea of what rides your kids can go on and what rides they can't go on. If you do have a really little one that's gonna be in the baby carrier, that is gonna be so amazing for you, and honestly, it's really such an amazing and magical experience. My daughter is a little bit shorter for her age, but she was still able to go on so many rides, including Big Thunder Mountain Railroad. Our second trip, she went on Guardians of the Galaxy. I think it ended up being 8 or 9 times, which totally blew me away because she's 5, but she loved it. During the picture, she was like, look at those height requirements. She was a little bit disappointed in a couple that she could not go on, including Indiana Jones over at Disneyland. So make sure you look up this information. I can provide a link below that gives you a link to all of the height requirements at both parks. Next tip that kind of has to do with the height requirement is use the rider switch for the big rides. My husband and I did this for Incredicoaster at DCA, Indiana Jones over at Disneyland. What this does is this allows one adult to go on the ride while the other parent or the other adult is with the kids, and then it allows you guys to switch and not have to wait in line again. Okay, so this is a little bit complicated, and the first trip I was a little bit confused at how this works. So here is a step-by-step guide on how the rider switch works. If you're traveling with young kids, this is gonna be super helpful. So when you get to the ride, you're gonna tell a cast member that you want to utilize rider switch. So your group will be split into 2 parties. Party 1 will be the first group or the first person that will go on the ride, and the second group will stay with the child who cannot ride or the children who cannot ride. The cast member will scan your tickets or your magic bands, we'll get to that later, and assign a digital rider switch pass. The first group or the first person goes onto the ride while the second person waits with the child or the children. Party 2 stays outside the ride while the first person or first group is enjoying the ride. Once party 1 comes out, party 2 can use the rider switch pass, so you scan either the pass on your phone or your magic band and you head into the ride. So that second adult or that second group can bring up to 2 people. So I know, how did we work this? I'm trying to remember how we worked it, but if you have questions, ask a cast member. I really would like to pretend that I am, you see my full sweater? It says Magic Crew, but really I'm just a mom influencer who loves Disney. Next tip, pack smart. Okay, this seems pretty simple, but you can bring a recyclable water bottle. This is going to be super helpful. Water and just really anything is obviously really expensive in the park. Bring wet wipes. Don't forget those diapers or pull-ups if you're at that stage. Bring extra clothes, especially, I have yet to be able to experience this ride, but especially for Tiana's Bayou Adventure over at Disneyland. It was not open either time that we went, but I have heard that you get absolutely drenched on that ride, even if you have a poncho or rain cover or whatever. So think about that, plan for that, and bring a power charger or power bank for your phone if you don't have one. Here's what I did. This was some of the best money I spent at Disneyland. I bought the fuel rod. This was so incredible. I used this to charge my phone, and then all you have to do is stick this in the machine once it's out of battery, and you swap it out and it gives you a new one. If for some reason the machine doesn't spit out a new one, you just have to call the number and they will help you from there. But this fuel rod, amazing, incredible, definitely recommend. In this little category, I will put this little sign that I ordered on Etsy. It says the Ray family. We put this on our stroller, and it was just like, you know, a cute little addition, fun way to identify your stroller. And speaking of strollers, bring a stroller if you can, but make sure you check the dimensions of what type of stroller is allowed. We had a travel stroller, so I knew it was going to work, but you cannot, hot tip, you cannot bring wagons into Disneyland. Next tip, and perhaps the most important tip, arrive early, like super early, far earlier than you're ever going to think that you have to arrive. I've seen so many things that say, oh, arrive 30 minutes before park entry. No, you need to arrive like 2 hours before the park opens. This is gonna seem so excessive, but we would get to the security line at like 6 a.m. I think our very first time we got there at about 6:45. I waited in line, my husband went and grabbed coffee, grabbed some snacks and stuff for the kids, and we were all excited looking at the app. The kids were kind of sleepy. This is gonna seem excessively early, but what you need to know is that you go through security and then you have to line up at the ticket gates. And then once you get through the ticket gates, you have to line up at rope drop. So this is not just a show up a few minutes early and get into the parks. It is a process, and it will go by surprisingly fast. And why arriving excessively early is going to help you so much is that once you get into rope drop, early entry if you're staying at the hotel, or rope drop for regular people, you are going to do more in that first 30 minutes to 1 hour than you will probably do for the rest of the day, because the lines will not be long enough yet to have huge wait times. I've experienced this now a couple of times. I know people who are like, oh my gosh, we had such a terrible time. You know, we arrived at the park at like noon. You got there so late, like you arrived at a time that all the rides have huge wait lines. So when you get there super early, you can start to kind of get excited. Someone can go grab coffee while you're waiting in the security line. Then you get through security and you're waiting at the ticket gates, and then you're gonna line up for rope drop. When we went there for the first time last year, we did 6 rides in the 30-minute early entry. 6! So you can do so much that then kind of like alleviates, like, not that you want to rush everything, right? But it's so nice to know that you did so many things at the beginning that it kind of allows you to enjoy the rest of the day a little bit more. Feel a little more relaxed instead of like, oh my god, we gotta get to this ride and this ride and this ride. And what's so great is when you get there so early, you can start booking your lightning lanes early, because if you don't get lightning lane multipass, like the fast pass basically, until 10 a.m. 11, some of those lightning lanes are going to be for 8 p.m. That's how quickly they fill up. So the earlier the better. I promise you this is going to be the best tip. This is the best tip of this whole video, is arriving excessively early. It is going to make your trip so much better, I assure you, from first-hand experience. 2 times last year, we took my in-laws in our second trip, and they were like, why are we getting here so early? And then they quickly saw that once we were in, we did so much in such a short period of time. The wait times weren't long yet. We were booking lightning lanes. It was just incredible. I remember in our first trip, by 11 a.m., we were like, oh my gosh, we've actually done everything we expected we would do this whole day, because we got just so much done in that first bit that we went back to the hotel. My son had a nap. We went to the pool. We came back to the park. It really just made the experience so much more enjoyable. Next tip, plan for breaks and make sure you bring a good bag. You cannot bring a giant oversized bag into Disneyland. Double check these dimensions. The first time we went, I had my Lululemon crossbody bag, a very popular item. They actually do have a Disney collab. But the second trip, I brought this that I think I got at like Marshall's, and now I am extra prepared with the true Disney merch, the Loungefly. You're gonna see so many people with these Loungefly bags. You can literally go into the Loungefly website, and there is a section where a personal shopper will go into the parks for you and shop the bag that you want. I have now collected a few. I've been debating selling a couple of these on my Poshmark, or maybe like doing a giveaway or something. So if that seems interesting to you, let me know in the comments, because if there are Disney nerds out there like me that want a Loungefly, I may have you covered. So plan for breaks and make sure you pack for those breaks in your bag. Bring a couple of granola bars, have that refillable water bottle. The next tip is to consider the Lightning Lane Multi-Pass or Fast Pass or Genie Plus. It is going to get you the Lightning Lane onto the rides, and it's also going to get you some incredible photo opportunities and high resolution photos that are going to make your trip even more memorable. It is definitely worth it in my opinion. And last but not least, consider the magic band. We did not use magic bands on our first trip, so we just scanned our tickets on my phone. So when we used Genie Plus or Lightning Lane, we were scanning my phone in the machine. This is really not a big deal, but we would scan through the tickets and then scan it with the machine. When we used the magic bands, it was just so much easier. My daughter thought it was so much fun to like scan her wrist when she was going into the park, so this you use into the park and into the rides when you're using Genie Plus. Also, when you're getting the photos, the photo pass, they just scan this. So this was huge tip. If you're going to be only going to Disneyland like once ever, maybe it's not worth it, but for our upcoming trips we have these, which is so helpful. I thought this was so worth it. Definitely a consideration. I know there's so many things to spend money on. It's definitely going to be an expensive trip, but I don't think anyone goes to Disneyland thinking it's going to be like a bargain. You're also going to be shocked at some of the merch prices. I will say that food is pretty expensive, but I also recently went to Miami and Las Vegas, and the food was more expensive in Miami and Las Vegas than it was at Disneyland. So have fun, take all the photos, take the videos, enjoy every second. You are going to make memories to last a lifetime. Let me know what you think in the comments. If these tips end up being helpful for your Disneyland trip, I absolutely want to know. So if you watch this video and then you go to Disneyland, please try to remember to come back and let me know, because I honestly want to know if they were helpful for you, because they were definitely helpful for us, but I know that might not be the same for everyone. Let me know if you want to hear more about Oogie Boogie Bash, the Princess Breakfast, Goofy's Kitchen, Bibbidi Bobbidi Boutique. We do have videos on Oogie Boogie Bash, Princess Breakfast, and I don't know if we did oh yes, I do have a video on the Bibbidi Bobbidi Boutique, so I will link all those below. Watch those if you need tips on any of those, and have the best time ever. We are on our way to Disney Alani literally next week, so if you want to see all the footage, all the videos covering Disney Alani, about our trip to Disney Alani on Oahu, make sure you hit subscribe and you will see all those videos when they come out. See you guys next time. Maybe see you in Hawaii.